shock you to learn this, but it turns out that Disney Star Wars is kind of a contentious topic. The fandom's been more or less divided between those who like the sequel trilogy and those who like good movies. But both groups spend a great deal of time slinging shit at each other over every form of social media known to man. And truly, no battleground is more fiercely contested than the protagonist of each trilogy. People who hate the Disney trilogy tend to criticize Rey for being an overpowered, flawless, perfect, invincible, and unrelatable character for whom everything just kind of happens with no real struggle or difficulty. A Mary Sue, if you will. Meanwhile, supporters of the sequel trilogy are quick to leap to her defense, usually with one of two potential counter-arguments. 1. You just hate strong women. 2. So what if she's OP as fuck? Anakin Skywalker from the prequels was a Mary Sue too, and you don't criticize him, you just hate strong women. This argument was brought into sharp focus for me the other day when I was perusing Twitter in search of calm, logical, rational discussion about the merits of the sequel trilogy, and I chanced upon this little gem of a comment.
Comment is, this guy is the actual Mary Sue of Star Wars, but y'all ain't ready to have that conversation yet. With the picture underneath it portraying the actor who played Anakin Skywalker and the second and third. Just to let you have the context on what the conversation is. Now back to it.
Ah yes, that famously perfect protagonist who wins at everything, always makes the right decisions, has a selfless and compassionate personality, and is universally loved and respected by everyone.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
I love you!
Liar!
I killed them all.
Well, random Twitter moron, as it turns out, I am ready to have that conversation right now. So saddle up, y'all, because the drinker's here to round up this bullshit and put an end to this argument once and for all. Let us journey deep into the world of the Star Wars prequels and see if we can figure out whether Anakin Skywalker really is a Mary Sue. Now, in order to do this, we have to nail down what exactly a Mary Sue is. Well, according to the dictionary definition, it's a term used to describe a fictional character, usually female, who is seen as too perfect and almost boring for lack of flaws, originally written as an idealized version of an author in fan fiction. Now, the finer points of what makes a Mary Sue can vary depending on who you talk to, but after consulting multiple sources and drawing upon my own experiences as a writer, there's a few common traits that I think most people would generally agree on. 1. Mary Sues usually possess skills and abilities that are not consistent with their situation and personal history. They can do stuff they shouldn't realistically be able to, and they can do it better than anyone else. 2. They usually possess flawless, idealized personalities that no real person could measure up to. They never give in to negative emotions like anger, greed, jealousy, selfishness, or arrogance. 3. They're universally loved, respected, and embraced by every good character they encounter, even when there's no logical reason for this to happen. 4. They never get seriously challenged, fail at anything, or get beaten by anyone. Success and victory comes easily to them. And 5. They always make good decisions and strive to do what's right in any situation. So, why is this actually a problem? Well, I think the answer should be obvious. Mary Sues are boring as fuck. If a character's got no flaws or weaknesses and never really gets challenged or tested by anything, then what is there to get invested in? It's the flaws and failings of a character that make them interesting in the first place, and their struggle to rise above and overcome these flaws that make them so compelling. If these things are missing from a character, then there's nothing for the audience to latch onto or care about. There's nothing to like or root for. That's the essence of a Mary Sue, and that's what we're going to be looking at here. So with that in mind, let's see how Anakin stacks up against this list, shall we? Point number 1, being overpowered and having abilities that he shouldn't. Now, this more than anything else is what people tend to latch onto when they criticize Anakin. And who can blame them, really? On the surface, it seems pretty ridiculous to see a 9-year-old boy doing stuff like this.
R2, get us off this autopilot.
Into a wider context, shall we? When we first meet Anakin in The Phantom Menace, he's a slave living with his mother on Tatooine. He spent most of his life salvaging junk and using it to make new stuff that can marginally improve their quality of life. As a result, he's become pretty good with technology. Well, that makes sense, I guess. He's even applied these technical skills to pod racing, where he's been fairly successful despite suffering at least one major crash that we know about. Again, this kind of makes sense when you consider he's strong with the Force, which would likely give him heightened perception, reactions, and understanding of the world around him. You know, qualities that are important to high-performance racing drivers. Anyway, his racing abilities allow the main characters to win an engine part that they need to repair their ship, as well as enough money to buy his freedom. Sensing his importance, Qui-Gon Jinn takes him under his wing and begins to teach him about the Force. Remember when older mentor characters were allowed to teach the protagonist things? I miss that. He also takes part in a space battle that destroys an enemy mothership at the climax of the movie. Now, as goofy as this scene is in its execution, it's not actually inconsistent with Anakin's abilities and experiences. If you've worked around technology, vehicles, and ships your entire life, and you can pilot a racing pod to a high standard, then it stands to reason that you could probably operate other types of spacecraft as well, particularly if you have a droid on board to manage most of the ship's systems for you. However...
Yeah, that part of it forgets. R2-D2 is controlling the ship, and a lot of controls on those droids. Well within this realm of possible.
For the sake of argument, let's concede that Anakin in The Phantom Menace is indeed more skilled, competent, and capable than your average person. So, what kind of effect would this have on a young man from an impoverished background, suddenly thrust into a much larger world of power, politics, and opportunity? Well, that brings me neatly along to point number 2. Mary Sues are supposed to have flawless personalities, never giving in to anger, jealousy, resentment, vengeance, or ambition. All throughout the second and third movies in the prequel trilogy, Anakin displays an increasingly severe set of personality flaws that begin to undermine his position in the world and his relationship with other characters. He's impetuous and hot-headed, frequently rushing into dangerous situations without waiting for backup or considering the risk to himself, particularly when someone he cares about is in danger. Keep that one in mind because it'll be important later. He's ambitious, but also impatient, feeling like he's been unfairly held back by other characters, particularly Obi-Wan Kenobi, and this resentment causes a growing rift between the two men that eventually spills out into open conflict. Rather than taking the longer and harder path to wisdom and understanding, Anakin wants everything right away. He also cares deeply about people close to him, and this attachment often manifests in explosive bouts of anger and jealousy when he feels that they're being threatened. Like when his mother gets kidnapped and killed by Tusken Raiders, causing Anakin to go on a violent rampage that escalates into wholesale slaughter. Afterwards, even he's shocked by what he did.
And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too.
Or when he believes that Padme was turned against him by Obi-Wan Kenobi, causing him to lash out violently against both of them.
You brought him here to kill me!
No!
Let her go, Anakin!
By this point, he's been totally consumed by uncontrolled jealousy, anger, resentment, and betrayal. All of the emotions that lead to the dark side of the Force. The point here is clear. If you fuck with someone he cares about, then mercy and compassion go right out the window. All of his skills, abilities, and potential, which seemed so overpowered and unnecessary in the first movie, in fact serve a very important purpose for his character development. They've generated a sense of superiority, arrogance, and overconfidence, and a reluctance to listen to criticism or advice, no matter how well-intentioned they might be. These are dangerous flaws in his personality all by themselves, but combined with his overwhelming emotional attachment to people he cares about, it creates a potent cocktail of reckless ambition and deep-seated insecurity that makes him uniquely vulnerable to manipulation, something which will later prove disastrous. Because, while Mary Sue's are universally loved, respected, and trusted by everyone, Anakin certainly isn't. In the first movie, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mace Windu, and Yoda are all against training Anakin to become a Jedi, despite his obvious potential, because they know he's already too old to be inducted. This lack of early discipline in his life would leave a dangerous gap in his personality, making him unpredictable and less able to control his emotions. Two factors which are extremely dangerous for Jedi. These misgivings would carry over to the next two movies, where Anakin is elevated to the Jedi High Council on Palpatine's orders, but the Council itself refuses to grant him the rank of Master because they feel he hasn't earned it yet.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of Master.
Now, a different man would see this as an opportunity to prove himself by working hard and earning their trust, eventually winning them over and gaining the recognition he deserves. But Anakin takes this as a personal insult from the Council, which drives a deeper wedge between him and a Jedi Order which he believes will never truly respect or accept him. Wow, it's almost like Palpatine knew this was going to happen and engineered the whole thing to pull Anakin closer to him, portraying himself as the only one who can help Anakin realize his full potential. It's a surprisingly smart piece of characterization that's completely consistent with everything we know about both men. The higher Anakin rises, the more it stokes the fire of his ambition and superiority, and the more he comes to see anyone who doubts or cautions him as a threat to his success. This arrogance and overconfidence also causes him to test himself against powerful opponents before he's actually ready for them. And unlike Mary Sue's, who easily win every battle they have to fight, Anakin's recklessness causes an escalating series of losses. Like here, where he tries to take on Count Dooku all by himself, and it ends with Anakin getting his fucking arm sliced off. But his desire for revenge against the man who defeated him ultimately causes a more powerful and better prepared Anakin to execute him in the following movie, again proving his willingness to give in to vengeance and anger, even against helpless opponents. Or here, in his climactic confrontation with Obi-Wan, where his enemy has the advantage, but Anakin presses the attack anyway. And well, I think we know how that turns out. Just as a side note, I love how this carries over to Return of the Jedi.
Obi-Wan has taught you well.
See, Luke's taking the high ground here, just like Obi-Wan did. What we have here is a clear pattern of behavior from a man whose ambitions consistently outstrip his abilities. Rather than demonstrating patience and restraint and taking the slower and harder path to lasting wisdom and fulfillment, Anakin's inherent character flaws cause him to push himself beyond breaking point with increasingly disastrous consequences. Which brings me neatly along to the final point. Whereas Mary Sue's consistently make good, righteous decisions and always strive to do the correct thing, Anakin, on the other hand, demonstrates a consistent pattern of mistakes and misjudgments that ultimately cost him everything. As I've already shown you, the flaws in his personality are exacerbated by his powers and abilities, making him easy prey for a ruthlessly ambitious man that knows exactly how to flatter his ambitions and prey on his weaknesses. This eventually causes him to commit terrible crimes like murdering an entire tribe, including unarmed civilians, murdering children, executing a helpless opponent, helping to kill a Jedi Master, trying to murder his own wife, trying to kill his mentor and best friend, joining forces with an evil dictator to overthrow the Republic, delivering this scene.
I don't like sand. It's coarse, rough and irritating.
What I'm trying to say with all this pish is that Anakin Skywalker is the very furthest thing from a Mary Sue that you can get. Trying to label him as a Mary Sue for no other reason than because he's good at lots of stuff demonstrates a complete misunderstanding of what a Mary Sue is, and also of who Anakin is. The reality is that he's a powerful but deeply flawed man whose unique combination of circumstances and abilities have created a dangerous personality that's vulnerable to manipulation and corruption. His greatest strengths ultimately prove to be his most terrible weaknesses, with consequences that echo across the entire galaxy. Now, I have my own thoughts on the prequel trilogy as a whole, and I'd be lying if I said they were great movies, but fundamentally, I think the story they tell is actually pretty fucking good. And I'm just gonna say it, Anakin's rise to power and fall to the dark side is a damn good piece of character work that Disney would have done well to pay more attention to. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
I am bringing you today to a very special place, a holy place, a place that is a place that means a lot to me. I'm walking now up through the ancient stone circle field of Hun here in Norway, and I'm very privileged because I live quite close to this wonderful, special place. And today I want to talk about the resurgence and revival of paganism in Europe.
Skull. It's a good thing.
Are returning to the ancient belief systems of their countries, of their cultures, and I think it's awesome. Now, if you didn't know, I myself have been very closely connected on a very deep level to what most people call Norse paganism. Actually, since I was a child, I believe that what happened around 1,000 years ago with the introduction of Christianity in my part of the world. Christianity was, well, if you read some history, you will know that Christianity was forced upon people by violence and threats of death and torture, and people had no choice. Christianity was used as a political tool, and it was about centralization of power under a king. It was about globalization, and it was about taking power away from the local democracies. And heathenry, if you will, heathenry was not gone. It was just kept hidden. And you know what? We were always here. We were always here. Yeah, let's walk back down the hill. Now there's a lot that could be said about paganism or polytheism. I think the English word is when you have a pantheon of several gods. And I think the most important thing there is to understand the symbolism and how symbolism is used and how it represents nature and life and death. It is a very, very intelligent and insightful system of symbolism. And in Europe, there are several groups of paganism. You have, of course, Germanic, you have Celtic, you have Slavic, and you have Hellenistic. And I guess within those groups you will have different opinions and different subgroups, I guess. I don't think that's very important, and I'm not a big fan of the more dogmatic approach towards anything, actually. And it is my impression that this is very popular among young people. Now I'm a middle-aged man now, so it fills me with hope. It fills me with hope and joy. I remember when I was a kid, you know, lots of people, they were kind of comparing also too with Satanism and all sorts of strange stuff, you know, out of ignorance. And yeah, so yeah, you know, I always walk around the stone circles here. And I'll show you. Actually, there's one here that is my favorite. I'm walking around it now. I can't explain why. This one is kind of special to me. Why do you think that they built these stones? I can't. It's my favorite. I'm walking around it now. I can't explain why. This one is kind of special to me. Why do you think that they built these stone circles? There are several here. Why, when they had one, why did they build more? It's a bit of a mystery, actually. Now, there are many guesses, but nobody really knows why. In Iceland, they have a temple dedicated to the Norse gods, and I'll read something for you, which I find is very telling. Let's see if I can find it then. Yes, High Priest Hilmar Ørn Hilmarsson. High Priest is not a good, well, he's not a priest, is he? You know, but that's what they call him here in this article. But anyway, he says that I don't believe anyone believes in a one-eyed man who is riding about on a horse with 8 feet. We see the stories as poetic metaphors and a manifestation of the forces of nature and human psychology. I couldn't have said it better myself. There's
Here, agreed.
a lot that we can't explain when it comes to nature and life in general. And I think that having this connection with something, well, with something spiritual is important. And it's something that can be felt out in nature, especially when I'm out camping on my own. I feel very strong connection. That's a connection with nature. It's not, as some people like to write in the comments, it's not a connection with, what is it that they write? They always write, oh, you're worshipping the creation and not the creator. How ignorant, how rude. Yeah, I get annoyed when I see that. Yeah. Nature. Now, walking up again. You know what? I'll turn the camera around. It's beautiful, don't you think? Now, this connection with nature is something that all so-called pagan religions have in common. And it is at the center of everything. Behind me is some information just behind me there about some of the Bronze Age artifacts that were found here. Not only do we have these stone circles, but we also have some grave mounds, and this area is very rich when it comes to Bronze Age finds, and it stretches from here towards Sweden and towards my house there and further. And it's I'm so privileged to live in this area. I'm so privileged, and this heritage is something that we must protect, and everyone should feel immense pride because of this. It's so. I'm struggling to find the words to describe how wonderful this is, how rich, and how lucky we are to be part of this. That, you know, I often feel like that when I come here. I feel like I lack the words to describe what I'm feeling, what I'm seeing, and yeah, it's just wonderful. It's so wonderful. And you might have seen me wearing a immediately toward Torshammer, as I'm doing today. And it's to signalize that it's who I am, you know, it's who we are, it's our culture, it's our heritage, it's our belief system, and we should take pride in that. And I think everyone should. And it's the same if you are living in, if you're a Native American, you know, it's just the same. It's your culture, it's your tradition. And I think we, as human beings, we become better in every way if we can take pride in who we are. And I think we would have much less conflict in the world.
What is China? When you see China, one of the things that pop out is saying, look what they're doing here, here, and here, because a lot of times we don't even know what's going on inside.
Okay, well, first of all, to understand this global cult and how it works, people need to realize it has no borders. We see China, and we see the American government and the British government, the French government, but that's not how the cult sees it. The cult sees it as, this is our China government, this is our French government, this is our British government, this is our United States government, and they work as one unit. So, I mean, you specialize in the financial arena. So much has happened and decisions have been taken in the United States that have benefited the increasing power of China over the world economy. Why would American governments be making decisions that aid China? Because that's a cult government and that's a cult.
And before you diss it, look into it. As soon as the Russian embargoes happened and nothing came from there, look at what's happened. It's factually provable.
Government. So the Chinese system that is coming into the West under the name vaccine passport is the social credit system. And this is all part of this post-Mao incubation of a global system in China. So what happens, if people haven't come across it, is there are millions of surveillance cameras in every Chinese city. And AI, by the way, the AI cutting edge that we're told is not the AI cutting edge. It's just what we're told is the cutting edge. The AI system in China is tracking and logging and monitoring people in real time, 24/7. And it's logging whether you are behaving in ways that the government wants or whether it's in ways the government doesn't want. If it's the way the government wants, you get credits. If it's not, you have them taken away. And once you reach a point where you've lost enough credits, you can't fly, you can't go on a train, you can't basically operate in mainstream society. It's a system of total control. Now, as a result of the virus, and I keep doing that because we need to get into that. What is this virus?
Yep, I wholeheartedly agree on that one too, because when you look into it, just by their own standards of medicine, they have yet to follow their own standards just to claim, okay, we have this, and it causes this. There's step one of the process is isolate the so-called material, and they have yet to even do step one. So I agree with him there. Call it in quotes, virus. Because it is. They have no proof. And all the proof claims it's not real.
As a result of that coming out of China, we now have these increasingly, in country after country, vaccine passports. Now, what are they saying? Not least in Austria now. They're saying if you don't do what the government tells you to do, i.e. have this fake vaccine, then you can't operate in mainstream society. You're excluded from society.
Heck, I'm in Canada, and at a time, they were forcing you. If you want to go eat in a restaurant, if you want to go and visit your grandparents in the retirement home, you have to bow down to Alter Ojabo. Sadly, the only thing that this reminds me of in actual history that we can go back to and see the outcome of was the Golden Stars back in World War II. And if you didn't have your papers, you get shot on sight. How fast we forgot about that, huh?
Now, that's just what happens in China, because it's the Chinese system going global. The cult Chinese system going global. And the plan is this, and this is another reason why a lot of people have moved into this camp of pushback, is they were told that you have the first 2 jabs, and then you go back to normal. And if we have a vaccine pass, you've got a vaccine pass. You'll be all right. And then they said, well, actually, you need a 3rd. And in a place like Israel, you need a 4th. And by the way, if you don't have them, then you're not fully vaxxed, and you lose your vaccine passport, and you go back to being excluded from society in the same way people have had any fake vaccines. And a lot of people have gone, this is why they're throwing away lots of these booster vials. People aren't having them, because they're going, no, 2's enough. You've lied to me once, no more. And this is all part of what's going on in England big time. So you have this vaccine passport. Now notice what they're calling it. In place after place, country after country, a green pass or a green passport. Why? Because, and people that have had the jab and people that still, believe what they're told and lambast and demonize those that haven't, need to remember this. These vaccine passports are the Chinese social credit system under another alias, and through what I call the totalitarian tiptoe technique, they're going to move on and impose on more and more of your life and your life decisions. So the idea is that they've gone from 2 jabs, there you go, there's your pass. Oh no, 3, oh maybe 4. And you can get the 6 and refuse the 7th, and you go back to being excluded from society in the same way that people haven't had any. But then they start introducing other parts of your life. Why do they call them green passes? Because the human-caused climate change hoax, been hoaxed and orchestrated by the same people. You know, Mr. Vaccine, Bill Gates, takes time out from wanting to vaccinate the world with this fake vaccine to publish a book in February 2021 of how the world must change to save the world from climate change. Our society must change. And just by coincidence, nothing to worry about, how society must change to save the world from climate change is how society, he said, must change to save the world from COVID. Same people are behind it.
What is China? When you see China,
Real warriors don't show their hearts until an axe cuts open their chests. Even in the sheath, the sword must be sharp. So too must the mind and the spirit be within the body. A person should not agree today to what he will regret tomorrow. Better to fight and fall than to live without hope. You will reach your destination even though you travel slowly. Life is not a level field. Life is hills and mountains, lowlands and ravines. The era is the result of letting fear rule your actions. Better to die with honor than live with shame. Not every cloud which darkens the day brings rain. When truth and fairness are different from what is law, better it is to follow truth and fairness. It is okay that you have made mistakes. Life didn't come with instructions. Only a coward waits to be taken like a lamb from the fold, or a fox from a trap. No one is a total fool if he knows when to hold his tongue. As one candle can light another, so too can greatness of mind be transferred amongst men. To remain in solitude is to deprive oneself of this kindling. Stand by your own trial, and not by what others say. When a real battle starts, you'll always find that there is no bravest man. Where wolf's ears are, wolf's teeth are near. That which has a bad beginning is likely to have a bad ending. The brave man shall fight and win, though dull his blade may be. Too much ale, and a man's heart is laid open for all to see. The more folk stand in the way of two hearts that yearn for each other, the hotter the flame of love waxes. All a people need in order to rise up against tyranny is a leader bold enough to take up the banner. There is more in honor in accumulating little by little than in reaching for the sky and ending up flat on your face. When men meet foes in fight, a stout heart is better than a sharp sword. Oftentimes, it is not numbers that wins the victory, but those who fare forward with the most vigor. The foolish man thinks he will live forever if he keeps away from fighting, but old age won't grant him truce, even if the spears do. When fear leads the way, the destination is never glorious. Even a silent man will be instantly respected if he tells the truth. To become a man that instantly commands respect, don't be afraid to be criticized or disliked. Don't be afraid to engage in conflict and stand up for what is right. Honest conflict is always better than dishonest harmony. Don't mess with ale if you are weak. A clear head is good company. Drinking is a dangerous friend. Take care of your speech. It can be the catalyst for many needless problems. You never know who could be lending an ear to your ramblings. This video is brought to you by Surfshark. I landed on gas station. Painting. First, it was criticism of trends, and properly or scene one, who I am and outline. I was very uncertain whether or not to include a sponsor on this one due to the subject matter, but Surfshark is a tool promoting security and protection, so I landed on yes. Alright, before getting started, I want to do a brief history of who I am and outline my relationship to TikTok as a social media application. I do not actively use the platform. I understand that there is massive growth potential for any creator. I understand that creators who leverage it properly are seeing monumental follower gains, and I understand that there is content there which can be seen as entertaining. But all things combined, TikTok is a platform that I despise. I've covered the application multiple times now. First, it was criticism of trends and challenges, where TikTok users would dress as victims of global tragedy and inappropriately sing or dance on screen, pretending to be victims on the anniversary of 9/11, pretending to be victims of the Holocaust. These teenagers were displaying what I consider to be a horrifying lack of respect and common decency. But even worse, many of these users were also participating in challenges. Challenges are a flash in the pan of social media popularity, but in a short amount of time, they can deal a substantial amount of damage. Challenges on TikTok range from benign or relatively easy tasks to flat-out dangerous behavior. Snorting spray tan solution, for example, which allegedly increases melanin production. Eating entire scoops of dry protein or mixing powder, which can cause aspiration pneumonia. Drinking methylene blue, commonly used as fish tank cleaner, to recolor your tongue. And the list goes on. Challenges on TikTok range from innocent to potentially life-threatening, and anywhere in between. Putting pennies behind electrical sockets, which causes electrocution and fire. Holding your own breath until you pass out. Slapping school teachers or vandalizing school bathrooms. When I say that these challenges are now a constant part of our everyday lives, all of us, even when we don't know it, I'm being serious because the influence of TikTok that has bled over from personal behavior to societal impact is profound. On December 17th of 2021, in the aftermath of a national tragedy, TikTok gave rise to ambiguous but substantial threats of violence against schools, forcing a nationwide security response in the United States. Some parents were never aware, some may have heard about it after the fact, but this social media app was playing a role in school cancellation now, forcing a police response to thousands of elementary schools. Ultimately, nothing happened, thank God, but the reality of what this app has become cannot be denied. However, for those already forming an opinion of the platform, it gets worse. The next example of coverage I looked into was medical. TikTok is a home to viral and popular trends, but what are those trends doing? For teenage girls, those trends are likely causing neurological disorders, as they are bombarded by and subjected to viral content of facial and behavioral tics or manufactured quirky behavior, which they begin to subconsciously imitate. TikTok trends designed to be engaging and funny, like multi-million view fake videos of Tourette's abuse, is causing actual health problems in underage users. But it gets worse. The entire application is formed around small snippets of content. One of my most popular videos ever was called TikTok is Destroying a Generation, centered on medical research suggesting that TikTok lowers attention spans, decreases concentration, and affects short-term memory. These factors combined, as well as the resulting depression and anxiety that are built when users cannot properly moderate their own attention span, also their susceptibility to advertising, which can be very damaging, or subjected to things that they are unable to avoid or turn away from due to self-control issues, make TikTok a singular feedback loop of nearly all major negative factors involved with social media entirely. In essence, TikTok is a one-stop shop designed to facilitate rapid digestion of content for everything bad that has come from this aggressive social media revolution. That video, the previous one, went viral. In the aftermath, I was engaging with a number of professors and lower grade teachers about which particular sources I had used and in what order, with an ultimate effect where the subject matter itself crossed over into platform. That level of response felt good. I was proud of it. I dislike TikTok. I formed that opinion based on a variety of medical and social factors. I sourced the information, and then it had some measure of impact as a result. But believe me when I say this, it gets exponentially worse from here. Alright, before going further, sponsored video, and that sponsor is, once again, Surfshark. Your life online is a minefield. You play games, browse websites, download files.
Don't fall for those things. I have created codes. I know how to write C++. I know how electronics work. If this happens, this is the result. So command lines that you don't see working behind the scenes. You push a button and somebody already created the code. If that button's pushed, this is the outcome in this result, in this situation. For example, my PlayStation controller. If X, jump happens. If X were in air, thruster. See what I mean? You trust me. Do not fall for the VPN trap. If you really do, I feel sorry for you because they're logging all your info. Now, he's done his little rant and trying to make profit. He does have things to share that I think is valuable that people need to hear.
Matter is kind of tricky. Part of the video where I need to outline methods and give disclaimers. Investigating this subject matter is kind of tricky. Merely possessing a recording of what I looked into is probably, under some circumstances, illegal. Having been made aware by a community request that TikTok Live might contain problematic underage content, I was faced with a difficult question of how exactly to investigate this. After a great deal of thought, I landed on this kind of solution. I would not engage with anything that I discovered, except to say precisely what I was doing. Investigating TikTok Live to see if there is inappropriate or directly paid for explicit content by minors. If I encountered a broadcast that I believed to be a legitimate example of underage explicit content, I would cease recording immediately, document what I found with notes only, and move on. I would only record footage from streams where I was reasonably sure that those recordings were not over the line, and I would blur all, or nearly all, of the content that I recorded in the final video, since much of it would likely be near the line at best, should this kind of content be an issue. I was not prepared for what would happen next. Using a TikTok account I created some time ago for challenge and trending research purposes on prior videos, I began to browse the TikTok Live page. It's important to note here that TikTok Live does not function like YouTube or Twitch, for example, because you are not able to directly search keywords or categories. TikTok is, above all else, a primary feed of popular content where you selectively choose what to engage with, but that content feed is determined by an algorithm. This presents our first problem. The TikTok algorithm, as reported and investigated by the Wall Street Journal, utilizing dozens of custom bot scanning accounts, served a never-ending stream of drug content and sexual fetish material to users between the age of 13 and 15. The algorithm began to bombard these test accounts made as users with a self-expressed age of 13, 14, or 15 with non-stop depictions of whips, chains, or torture devices. They were funneling these children into what some users refer to as kink talk, which commonly contained sexual power dynamic fantasies and other very explicit behavior. Hundreds of videos containing adult material, whether it be substances, behavior, or both, were served in rapid succession to underage accounts by a central feed, which is governed by the algorithm. Now, it's important to understand how and why this occurs, and while the answer to that question might be incredibly complex, one of the easiest explanations is watch time. How long do you hover over a video letting it play? This one key metric can be used to determine, without ever needing to examine likes or followers, what content is more popular on TikTok. And for children ages 13 to 15, sexualized material can be an interest. Simply watching that portion of the feed for a few seconds longer, even if you never decide to like the video or follow the posting account, can tell the algorithm that you want to see more. And in a matter of minutes, you can be sucked down a rabbit hole of algorithmically driven adult content served to a minor's account, which reinforces itself over and over and over again. TikTok Live is a central feed where users are mostly subjected to whatever the platform wants them to see, until they have found specific streams that they like from particular broadcasters and followed those accounts. But what happens when the feedback loop starts? And what if the subject matter is even worse? At this point, I need to say something to everyone watching, especially parents. I can't show you all of what I found. I can't even show you most of what I found. Out of respect for the children involved, I need to heavily censor, redact, or remove portions of footage and other on-screen content. But what I found here is disturbing. Within minutes of browsing the feed, I was being shown users, primarily girls, who were certainly under 18 and could easily have been under the technical age requirement of 16 for TikTok Live, which many users I found would openly admit. Some stated without hesitation or numerous times that they were 15, others 14, etc. And it became clear that should the algorithm decide to serve you that content, if you watch it longer, or if you like any of it, there was no shortage. From there, things got worse. I started to see questionable content popping up where girls, often appearing to be quite young, were holding signs or standing in front of the camera with a revealing outfit. Those signs would say things like rose equals say daddy, or ice cream equals 360 spin, or even universe equals cut shirt. Or in one case, a woman who was definitely older than 18, she would cut off the wedding dress she was wearing for a certain chat sticker. The thing is, these pictures, or stickers, are not just pictures. They're money. In a way that seems nearly purpose-built for obfuscation, these little stickers and pictures, like a rose, are actually a way to donate money to these broadcasters, many of whom were openly admitting to being under 18 or even under 16 years old, as they did spins, bent over on camera, lifted their shirts, or engaged in other clearly suggestive content directly for money. Following the rules that I set out for myself through 4 separate sessions, I had to cut the recording and delete the footage over half a dozen times. Bombarded now with a feed of this content determined by the TikTok algorithm, I was being served a never-ending stream of girls on TikTok, many of them at very young ages, being paid by a chat room of viewers intending to see them in compromising positions.
This is not me, folks. This is someone else. And I'm just sharing what he found. You gotta be careful. Like, I haven't, on the video I'm seeing, he's blurred everything out. He's telling the truth. He did blur stuff out. Like, you can hardly even see it. You can barely make out anything. So don't say it's not out there, and sadly it's happening. Now who's protecting them?
It's awkward, it's uncomfortable, and once you begin to see what's really happening, it makes you sick. But there's more. Attempting to go about this process ethically, I began to ask questions in the chat room. I would directly state that I was a journalist. I don't actually view myself as an adequate journalist by any stretch, but that's an easier and more mainstream way of communicating the types of questions that I was intending to ask, rather than I'm a gaming YouTuber, so yeah. I would directly state that I was a journalist investigating the TikTok platform to see if there are underage users being paid by older men for explicit content, and the results were very troubling. One of 3 specific things would happen when I asked this question, and I'm going to show heavily redacted background footage with audio of what occurred in 2 of those outcome possibilities. The first was that the broadcaster would ignore me or refuse to engage. That's what I expected, and I wasn't surprised in the slightest. The second was that the broadcaster would immediately suspend me from the chat and repeatedly, even frantically, express that they were 18 years old or 19 years old, or that I don't break terms of service, I promise, etc. Here's an example. This response was also expected to a degree, considering the fact that a random user was asking them about what would be borderline or highly illegal and disgusting behavior without any sort of preamble. They don't know who I am or what I actually want, and they simply respond by distancing themselves. However, the third outcome, which happened numerous times, was the most interesting and concerning. When asking the question of certain broadcasters, some of them would answer, yes, I have heard of that stuff. They would go on to describe that it didn't happen in their broadcast, but they did know about it. They had some friends who did it, etc., etc. But the strangest factor of all was that on more than one occasion, and only after they answered affirmatively to my questions, the broadcaster would be suspended or banned from the platform in real time. Here's an example of that. For context, this girl, I'm just going to call her Jane for privacy reasons, answered my question, as you'll hear, with, yes, I do know about that. It doesn't happen here, though, and was then suspended immediately afterward.
I don't know what to tell you, man. What are you doing? Do you hear of older men using TikTok live and minors? Like, yes, I did. But nobody's on here with that. And if they are, I dismiss it right away. I'm a journalist investigating a platform. That's what's up.
I went on to have a roughly 10-minute off-platform interview with Jane about specifics of this, and this is where I started to become aware of coded language. To be clear, I cannot give a definitive reason why multiple broadcasters were suspended as soon as they answered my questions, acknowledging that the problem even exists, but it did not happen a single time to a broadcaster that blocked me or refused to answer. It only happened when they gave a statement, and it might be possible that the ban was simply for evading the 16-year-old age requirement. Jane had acknowledged in the very same broadcast that she was 15 and was coincidentally handed down at that particular moment, but I am extremely skeptical of what was going on here. Regardless, this is when I started to learn about coded language and where it became increasingly difficult for me to keep investigating. It felt disgusting and wrong to even sit silently in these rooms, let alone continue to ask questions. Things started to make sense from then on as to what precisely was happening. Viewers are using coded language to have underage girls perform for them. That's really what it is. Fit check means let us see your stomach or pull your shirt up. You forgot something or get something from the back means walk away and show your ass. Outfit check was a common one, very common, where girls would back up to show their entire bodies. And the chat rooms were completely overrun with requests, and I don't just mean trolls here. They were overrun with paying viewers, requesting feet pictures, often referred to as feet check, or toe ring check, or anything like that, or attempting to move off-platform and discuss some sort of larger transaction through Cash App. Do you want to make $400 fast, or $500 fast, etc., or buying them something from their Amazon wish list? I want to be extremely clear right now. Not all of the broadcasts that I found or that I'm using in the background right now were underage girls performing for money. Many of them were. Perhaps for some, they just looked younger than they were, but some of them openly acknowledged that they were 15 while taking donations in order to do squats and spins. These are children using TikTok Live to display their bodies, even fully clothed, but doing splits and showing their feet or spreading their legs for money from older men. And it is a breeding ground of inappropriate and sickening behavior. To be clear, I undertook multiple sessions of it.
That's just wrong, you know that, right? That's the person selling their body. They're slutting themselves out. What the fuck? And there's children to boot. If that doesn't upset you and boil your blood, there's something wrong with you. You need to be dealt with quick. It's not a threat or anything, it's just a statement. If you don't protect our children, there's something wrong with you. If you think that's something that's okay for that stuff to happen, there's something wrong with you. It's just a blunt truth.
Investigation. After starting with an old account, I created a brand new, fresh, never-before-touched profile and engaged with the same pattern of browsing. This new account fell into the same content black hole as before in a very short span of time, and were I to undertake the process again, I have no doubt in my mind at all of similar or identical results. I have to be careful here because certain claims I ran into over the course of my second session devolved into hearsay. It wasn't one of the specific girls that I talked to personally, but her friend who had been allegedly extorted after selling nude pictures to one of the viewers in her chat room. That type of situation, and I do believe that she was sincere, as a personal opinion, is called sextortion. And when underage girls are performing for money on a live broadcast, fielding thousands of donations in some cases and requests for other ways to send them money for a favor is often what they would say in the chat room, it can absolutely occur on that platform. In a very short time frame, I was finding more instances that made my skin crawl than those that didn't. Understanding that nearly every single teenage girl who uses the live broadcast feature of TikTok was being bombarded with requests, it starts to feel overwhelming. A 13-year-old girl who lies about her age is suddenly getting showered in gifts for showing her feet and twirling on camera. She gets more money when she dances provocatively, and an algorithm designed to serve content that people are interested in is showing her broadcast to more and more sick people all around the world every day, even every hour or minute. This kind of situation is so prevalent, okay? I was shocked by this. I encountered young boys who were using face filters, pretending to be young girls, in order to receive roses and other gifts, which are redeemable for cash. Maybe some of them were pranking the audience, sure, but if there is such a high demand for this, such a large economy of transactions and behavior taking place, that children will use filters to appear more feminine and engage with it for profit, that is a serious problem. When doing follow-up research for this video, I learned something else. Moderators of TikTok are specifically being trained using real material depictions of child sexual abuse. Uncensored, explicit images of children are used in high volume for moderation training. We need to ask a sincere question. Why did they feel it necessary to do that? After my initial wave of research on the subject, I found an article on Forbes written by Alexandra S. Levine titled, "How TikTok Live Became a Strip Club Filled with 15-Year-Olds." This was an excellent piece of work, and most importantly contained quotes from security, legal, and law enforcement experts. I'll link it down below if anyone is interested. It was invaluable in my own creation of this video. As per TikTok's own enforcement report, they removed over 300 million videos in 2021 alone that violated their community guidelines, and the majority of these were not removed by automation. Combining the adult nudity and sexual activities category with the minor safety category accounts for over 50% of all videos removed since 2020. Looking at the number of accounts removed that are suspected to be under the age of 13, 15 million of them in 1 quarter. October to December of 2021, 15 million account deletions for suspicion of being under 13 years old in just 3 months. I am not going to make the claim that TikTok is failing to try and moderate their platform. If their internal reports are to be believed, they certainly make that effort. I believe I witnessed it in real time as I investigated all this when broadcasters acknowledged my questions and were immediately suspended. They even resorted to highly unethical tactics to educate their moderators on child sexual material as they do this, but with the volume that they process, the sheer number of children flooding into the platform, and the undeniable economy that has arisen for sexual exploitation and transactional behavior, we must ask the question, is this platform doing more harm than it is good? An algorithm that has aggressively promoted adult behavior, from substances to kinks and more, directing that content at children, is now governing a live feed of broadcasters where underage girls are being showered in gifts to perform suggestive actions or poses, many of them with Cash App, PayPal, Amazon wishlists, or Venmo in their bio specifically for this purpose, while a massive community of groomers, and most likely pedophiles, watch intently, many of them actively trying to pull the girls into an off-platform environment, whether for money or other incentives. The footage I found within mere hours of investigating this topic had to be cut several times in view.
Scary and terrifying. But stuff needs to be done to protect our kids.